Hi everyone. In the late 19th century, as European naval powers raced to fortify their coastlines, Germany launched a small but formidable class of ironclad gunboats. Leading this class was the SMS Wespe, built in the 1870s for the Imperial German Navy. Armed with a single powerful 30.5 cm length 22 naval gun, Wespe was designed primarily for coastal defense. She represented Germany's response to the changing nature of naval warfare, compact, armored, and equipped for short-range firepower. After her sea trials in 1877, Wespe saw only limited active service. She was briefly commissioned for training missions in 1880, 1881, and 1885. Over time, her armament was upgraded during refits in 1883 and again between 1892 and 1894. Struck from the Naval Register in 1909, Wespe was repurposed as a barge and later converted into a cutter suction dredger by a Dutch company. Her long and varied career came to an end in 1926, when she sank during a storm off the coast of Newcastle, Australia. Remarkably, all 3 crew members survived. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the design, plans, and unique features of this forgotten ironclad, a small vessel with a surprisingly long and eventful story. The design of the SMS Wespe was the result of a shifting naval doctrine in 19th century Germany, one that focused on coastal defense rather than high seas domination. After the debut of ironclads in the Crimean War during the 1850s, German naval planners began considering armored vessels suited for defending their vulnerable North Sea and Baltic coastlines. Throughout the 1860s, the German Federal Convention studied various concepts for small ironclads, with proposals ranging from 8 to as many as 18 armored warships. But the decisive blueprint came in the early 1870s, when General Albrecht von Stosch, newly appointed Chief of the Imperial Admiralty, introduced his fleet plan. Von Stosch envisioned a coastal defense strategy led by the large Sachsen-class ironclad corvettes, supported by a swarm of smaller armored gunboats, the Wespe-Class. SMS Wespe, the lead ship of her class, was compact but robust. Measuring 46.4 meters in length, with a beam just under 10.6 meters, and a draft between 3.2 and 3.4 meters, she displaced just over 1,100 tons at full load. Her crew consisted of 3 officers and up to 85 enlisted sailors. Powering the vessel were 2 double-expansion steam engines, driving twin 4-bladed screw propellers. Steam was generated by 4 coal-fired cylindrical fire tube boilers, providing up to 800 horsepower, enough for a top speed of 10.4 knots. At a more economical cruising speed of 7 knots, she could cover 700 nautical miles, giving her limited but sufficient range for coastal duties. Wespe's primary weapon was a single 12-inch MRK L 22 gun, mounted in a fixed barbette. With only a limited arc of traverse, aiming was largely achieved by maneuvering the ship itself. This unconventional firing method aligned with her role as a semi-mobile artillery platform. In fact, the Wespe-class gunboats were designed to beach themselves along sandbars, effectively serving as temporary shore batteries when needed. At the heart of SMS Wespe's offensive power was a single, formidable artillery piece, the 30.5 cm MRK L 22, or Mantel Ringkanone, one of the most powerful naval guns of its era. This was a rifled breech-loading gun designed by Krupp, using a cylindrical prismatic sliding breech, an advanced mechanism for its time. This massive weapon alone weighed 36,729 kilograms, and its specially designed pivot carriage added another 25,000 kilograms. Together, the entire assembly weighed about 60 metric tons. Installed aboard SMS Wespe in early 1877, the gun was subjected to extensive sea trials. On March 26 of that year, live fire exercises demonstrated the gun's performance exceeded expectations. Observers noted that it was as powerful as the British 80-ton naval gun, but markedly more accurate, a testament to Krupp's engineering. Originally using traditional powder charges, the gun's performance was further enhanced by the adoption of prismatic gunpowder C-82 in the early 1880s. This innovation increased the kinetic energy, or vis viva, of the guns shot from 3,895 to 4,450 megatons, a significant leap in firepower. With this upgrade, the gun fired a 329 kg shell, using a 92 kg charge of C-82 powder. The result? A muzzle velocity of 522 meters per second, or about 1,712 feet per second. Though designed primarily for coastal defense, this gun had the potential to inflict serious damage on enemy ships or shore installations. With its heavy shells and considerable range, estimated to reach up to 8,000 meters, depending on elevation, a single well-placed shot from the Wespe could penetrate the armor of most contemporary vessels or devastate fortifications near the shoreline. Despite being mounted on a relatively small hull, the 30.5 cm MRK L-22 gave SMS Wespe a punch far beyond her size. In terms of protection, the ship was well armored for her size. The main gun barbette was shielded by 203 mm of wrought iron, backed by 210 mm of teak wood. A waterline armor belt, varying from 102 to 203 mm in thickness, protected the engine room and magazine, also backed by thick teak for shock absorption. An additional armor deck, made from dual layers of iron over wood, offered further protection against plunging fire. The keel of SMS Wespe was laid down in May 1875 at the AG Weser shipyard in Bremen, under the simple contract name A. She was launched on July 6, 1876, and named after an earlier wooden gunboat that had carried the same name. She was officially commissioned into service on November 26, 1876. Initial sea trials began shortly after, running until February 9, 1877. The ship then conducted live fire tests with her massive 30.5 cm gun in the Schillig roadstead between March 24 and April 9. Following these trials, Wespe was placed in reserve, a pattern that would define much of her career. Wespe returned to active duty briefly on September 20, 1880, under the command of Kapitänleutnant Fritz Rotger. She carried out training exercises alongside her sister ship Crocodile, but was decommissioned again less than a month later, on October 15. The following year, in September 1881, she was recommissioned once more, this time to train sailors for other newly completed ships of her class. After a short training period, she was deactivated again in mid-October. Though briefly considered for deployment during the International Naval Demonstration in response to the Anglo-Egyptian War in 1882, Wespe remained idle. By 1883, she was modernized with two 35 cm torpedo tubes mounted below the waterline at the bow, a notable upgrade that hinted at evolving naval tactics. In August 1885, Wespe was brought back into service one final time for training maneuvers with three of her sisters, Salamander, Viper, and Mucker, in the Jade Bite. Afterward, she was assigned to the North Seas Reserve Division. Between 1892 and 1894, Wespe underwent her most significant modernization. She received an armored conning tower, two 8.7 cm L-24 guns, and a pair of 37 mm Hotchkiss revolver cannons. Despite these upgrades, she was never reactivated. Her combat career, it seemed, had quietly ended. On June 28, 1909, she was officially struck from the Naval Register. A year later, Wespe was sold in Düsseldorf and repurposed as a barge. In 1911, she was acquired by the Dutch firm Hollandsche Maatschappij and converted into a cutter-suction dredger, renamed HAM3. In her final chapter, HAM3 was deployed to the Dutch East Indies. On March 27, 1926, she left Surabaya, Java, under tow by the tug Kraus, bound for Australia. But on May 11, while just 50 nautical miles off Newcastle, New South Wales, the ship began to flood in rough seas. Pumps failed to stem the water, and within 45 minutes, the crew had to abandon ship. As Kraus severed the tow line, the suction of the sinking vessel dragged her captain underwater, but he miraculously surfaced and was rescued along with the 2 other crew members. The final resting place of SMS Wespe, or HAM3, lies 102 meters below the surface, off Sugarloaf Point. A quiet end for a ship that once embodied Germany's coastal defense strategy, and later served as a workhorse in far-flung waters. Although designed with heavy armament and thick armor, the Wespe-Class gunboats never saw combat during their service with the Imperial German Navy. Instead, they quietly performed their intended role, standing guard along the vulnerable coastline of the North Sea. The Wespe-Class ships patrolled areas where Germany's coastal rivers, the Eider, Elbe, Weser, Jade, and EMS, emptied into shallow, treacherous waters, dotted with sandbars and small islands. If a foreign fleet were to breach the outer edge of these shoals, it could anchor safely and prepare for an amphibious assault. For that reason, these areas needed constant protection. Wespe-Class gunboats were specifically designed to operate in these shallow coastal zones, where larger warships could not go. Their task was to defend strategic locations, support local minefields, and operate far enough from shore that they couldn't rely on land-based artillery for cover. These compact ironclads also had a secondary role, acting as temporary replacements for larger warships when Germany faced vessel shortages. For example, in 1900, after several major ships were dispatched to China in response to the Boxer Rebellion, Wespe-Class ships filled in during that year's fleet maneuvers, standing in for the 4 Brandenburg-class battleships. Though modest in scale, the class made an impact through longevity and utility. One vessel in particular, SMS Viper, had a remarkable service life. In 1918, during the final months of World War I, Viper took part in a rescue operation to help free the dreadnought SMS Rhineland, which had run aground off the coast of Finland. Long after the war ended, Viper remained in service as a crane ship, staying active until as late as 1970. While they never fired a shot in anger, the Wespe-Class gunboats fulfilled their strategic role for decades, silent sentinels of Germany's shallow northern waters, designed for duty over glory. Thanks for watching.